Hey everyone, back with another video, another review, kinda. Saying kinda because what I want to talk about today is these here Red Dragon Dreadnought gloves. Before we get to that though, formalities out of the way real quick. So first and foremost, paid for these with my own money. Red Dragon wasn't aware that there was going to be a review, not that Red Dragon is aware of me anyway, in the first place. Then the general structure of the video will be the same as always-ish, kinda, not quite as formalized, I will get to that later, but I will cover the same things like why I got them, how I got them, and then, you know, things I want to talk about, things I liked, things I didn't like. You will not necessarily find videos about me, of me using them, but I will link to others because I've used these for quite a while now. And yeah, as always, just if you have any questions, just, you know, shoot a comment. I'll try to answer as quick as I can. You will find links down to the different parts of the video. Feel free to jump around. And then let's get actually to it, shall we? So, why did I get them? Well, you know, gloves, we all kind of need them. And at the time, these were really quite hyped. I was instantly drawn to them because they look like something that I would really want from a glove, something that I'm really looking for kind of still, which is basically take something that is pretty much just a classical plate glove, but don't make it out of metal, make it out of plastic so it's a bit lighter and no one can complain about it. And that is what also drew me to the armadillos, for example. If any one of you can remember that whole story, shout out to you. So I instantly liked them, thought about getting them, and then Ulrich dropped me a message that they were available just to pick up in Dijon when he was there. So he asked if he should bring me some, and that's where I thought just, you know, what the hell. I'm really interested in them, let's get that. Which means though that I didn't really order them anywhere, there's no order story, can't really talk about that. I just got them from Ulrich, who brought them from Dijon. What I can say though, that when we later needed parts, we got them real quick. Which is also part of the whole story of these. Maybe just to quickly cover why am I not making this one of the bigger glove reviews? Well, the thing is I'm not really sure if these are still a thing. The hype was there, definitely, and then people were kind of disappointed in their durability, and understandably so. There is definitely something to talk about there. And you can still get them from the HEMA Shop website. They are still around. You get them at a good discount, but they don't really seem to be like an active product. I have more of a feeling that it's more they sell the ones that they made, but I don't see them actively advertised anymore, really. So I don't know if this is actually still a thing. So for quite a long time I wanted to make you know, one of the bigger videos about it, but then I wasn't quite sure if that was still the time. But at the same time, I'm still using these, like all the time. So there is still something to talk about here. And maybe, you know, especially if the discount looks interesting to you, then I at least want to talk about my experience. So maybe that is something worth for you to check out and, you know, give maybe a slight tuck or snip in any direction of where you might be going with your thoughts about these. So as I said, I just got them really, I have no ordering story. Just picking them up, I really quite liked them in the beginning, just because they are light and they're quite comfortable. These are the bigger ones. I don't have ginormous hands. They're mostly just, I think I have relatively long fingers, but my hands are usually not exactly small, which is, for example, why I don't have the Black Prince from Historical Fencing Armory. They will probably not fit my hands. These fit quite nicely, though, and they sit quite comfortably. Just, I like the maneuverability. The plastic really isn't the thickest. Just, I think it's like 1 millimeter. I'll probably put it down when I measure it again. And it's quite flexible, for better or worse. These gloves, for me, are not exactly a heavy glove. Not really. They are more like medium plus. I find them more protective than ye olde Red Dragons. I find them more protective than the motorcycle type gloves that I use, but I don't find them quite as protective as, for example, definitely not a clamshell, but also not like the Infinity gloves from Sparring Glove, which, if you want to know more about those, I've made a video about those. If I want to put it into a situation, it's like, think about something like Glasgow plane number 5, where if you get hit, then your hand is pretty solidly wedged between two blades, possibly a Messer and a Longsword. I would wear those for that with Ulrich, maybe one or two other people. But just like for anyone else, someone I don't know that well, I would probably rather wear my Infinities. But I use these for longsword fencing in my club, or Klewang too, which can be quite intense all the time really. And for the very most part, I had no problem with these. They have their gaps, definitely. For example, like if you look here, they don't sit all the way over the finger. It still kind of is visible. There's no real protection between the fingers here, for example. They sit kind of okay down here at the pinky. And there is quite okay wrist protection, but it's all, you know, relatively thin, but it's solid plastic, so it still distributes the force quite evenly. And I don't know quite how well it shows, but my fingers have gotten hits. I use these for Messer a lot, and there the hand is always a target just because there's not that much around to protect it, and at the same time you're actively seeking out your opponent's blade, trying to stay close to it, so it's just sliding onto your finger, or your hand getting hit while you search for the blade of your opponent isn't rare, just quite the opposite really. So these have caught a lot of hits. You can see it in the old rivets as well. And I've never really had a problem with those. I don't recall anything, for like example with the Thox, where like the first unlucky hit I got on the side just was really quite painful. There's nothing like that, which is why I am still using them. Like as I said, all the time really. They're quite comfortable, they are quite light, and for me they are really quite a nice balance between maneuverability and protection. More protection than my motorcycle gloves, a bit less maneuverability, definitely more maneuverable than my Infinities, but not quite as protective as those. So for the fencing I do for a lot of situations, these are really quite nice. They work just fine. But speaking of the rivets, that was kind of the problem for a lot of people in the beginning, really, because the initial rivets that these come with, the ones that you see all dented here on my finger, well, they are kind of rubbish, really. They are way too thin. They bend incredibly easy, and that usually mostly just means that they fold over and slide out right out of the retaining band that keeps the plates in place. What Red Dragon did then was send out, if you ask them, just replacement rivets, screw rivets, which are much more solid and really actually quite nice. And you can see them here on my glove in some parts. I've replaced them on the finger where needed. On other parts, like here for the thumb, for example, or the knuckles here in general, because I didn't want the whole finger to come off, which I've seen pictures of. There I've done it kind of like preemptively. The rest I'm kind of just doing when necessary, like when one looks off, well, one rivet looks like it's just about to pop off really, or when I have to kind of find it. I've had that as well. Just I've actually had like middle segments pop off, but it was always the situation where I could just go, all right, you know, I'll just replace it. If I were in more situations where that just wouldn't be okay, like if I would be around more in competitions, I would have just replaced all of them. It's not that big of a hassle. I've made a little, I filmed me doing that. Just if you're interested in that, let me know. That's not hard to, you know, make presentable and show. It's really just basically you just take calipers? Missing the English word. Tongs? You take something to basically grab the rivet here, snip it off, and then just, you know, replace it with a new one, screw tight. Maybe add some screw glue to it if you want to be Loctite or something of that matter, if you want to be sure, and you're done. But that leads into one thing that I actually really quite like about the glove in general, is that you can do that. These are fairly easy to maintain, really. The plates shift around and it's all kind of loose. But, you know, these plates are basically placed on a band. That these are just riveted through. And you can take this off if you want. These are still the originals. Those were more solid rivets that they put on. These are fine. If you want to take off the plate here, just, you know, unscrew these two rivets and you can take the rest off, really. If you need to fix anything, if you would want to exchange a plate, for example, because one got broken, if you could source a replacement plate, you could do that. You can take this whole assembly here off. You can also take off the whole guard here, for example, for the wrist, right? That is just velcroed to it. And that has the problem of it sometimes coming a bit loose, like if you're wrestling, for example, and then you need to realign it, and that's kind of a pain. And you probably noticed that it wasn't quite 100% straight, because I just couldn't be bothered, really. Kind of like I can't be bothered too much now. I'll fix that later. But again, the good thing is you can do that. And I'm kind of sad that it seems like this isn't really actively worked on anymore, and it seems more like, or advertised, it seems like they're more selling what they have at a discount too, because with all their flaws, you know, them being lighter, the original rivets being kind of rubbish, and you needing to exchange them yourself. I think if you buy them now, you just get that parcel here with it right away. But I'm still liking them and using them. And for example, if you just were to make a V2 and just maybe make the plastic a bit thicker in parts, offer like replacement kits just right out of the box on the regular, use better rivets, maybe on the retaining band. I'll have to see if I can show photos. I think I have that somewhere. It's basically just your normal woven plastic band, plastic material band that is just, you know, a hole in, and then the rivet is pushed through. Maybe see if you can hot weld those holes shut so they don't fizzle out as much, which would make them last longer, or something like that. There's definitely improvements you could make, and then I think they could be really, really good. It seems to me like a bit of a wasted opportunity, really, because they are more protective than motorcycle type gloves. They are definitely more agile, more maneuverable than the older type Red Dragons, the Lacrosse type gloves. I like them way more than those, and they are more protective as well. They don't quite have the same gaps, really. And while the plastic is relatively thin in a way, it's also the good thing about that is that allows you to squeeze them into some hilt constructions, where other gloves probably of the same kind of level won't necessarily fit into, right? If you have something with a knuckle bow like this one is really, really tight, and this won't necessarily be fun because of the finger and everything, but you can make it work if you want to, because it's all kind of flexible and you can squeeze it together, really. If it is any kind of tighter construction, You know, like it will fit this relatively open construction here just perfectly fine, of course. It will fit longswords just fine, so I'm not even gonna show that really, no need. But, you know, any kind of D-guard like this is always kind of a problem, but you can make it fit just fine. Also because the fingers sit kind of loose inside the plates and they basically just push up and through, but still you end up with something that is actually really kind of nice and protected for this kind of hilt. And if it's like something more protective, like the Infinities, then that's kind of a problem. You probably won't make them fit because they are stiffer. So, you know, if you have the flaws in mind that it has, and if you are on the lookout for a glove that you can get at a good discount, something that will fill like the same niche as the Red Dragons, the classical ones, the Lacoste type ones, but better in pretty much any way as far as I'm concerned, then maybe really, you know, give these a look. They have their downsides. You will need to exchange the rivets. Maybe just do it right away or do it like I do, and if something pops off, just, you know, fix it then, really. But all in all, I still would say these are worth a look. They are not exactly clamshell tournament type safe, but I use them for longsword and messer all the time. I use them for rowworth all the time, really, and they work fine for me. I'm still kind of hoping that maybe this isn't the last we've seen of them. Maybe there will be a V2, but I haven't heard anything about that, and it's been a while, really. I got the message, I think I started using them, that was May 2024 or something. But they're still alive, which I can't exactly say of other gloves I've had, which cost more. So I think, you know, if you know what you're getting into, these really can be considered a deal. So maybe worth a look. I'm still happy with mine, so maybe check it out. Cheers.